Next, Tom Butler.
I never liked Lauren Bacall.
Well.
Neither young nor old.
Young nor Freud.
Susan Hayward.
This is called Sandpipers.
So strange, huh?
Sandpipers.
So happy.
You hijacked me, made me give up my Saturday afternoon to take you to the shore before you went crazy. A fireman by nature, I know what the smell of smoke can mean. So I dropped everything and we drove to Nahant. We walked the long, hard strand between Nahant and Lynn, my mind still in Cambridge, until you pointed out the Sandpipers. They huddled near the water in formations of 20 or so, turning their bodies in not perfect unison, as though this were only a dress rehearsal. See how they face into the wind, you said. That's how they keep from being blown away, from being made to fly when they don't want to. Interesting, I muttered, envying the birds. I drew closer to examine them, but they cakewalked sideways toward the water. First one would move, then they all would. A few had only one leg. I could not make up a story to explain that. Sometimes the lead bird would trot to the back, tired of facing the wind, and another would move up to take its place. Further off toward Lynn, I saw surfboarders on the water, lots of them. Their colorful sails were butterfly wings, their black-suited bodies pressed and strained against the frames, as though they were being crucified. Some fell suddenly over into the water, only to be resurrected again and again. It was all a random kind of dance. I compared them to the Sandpipers, deciding that the birds at least knew what they were. We came to some clam diggers. A woman pulled a huge clam like a rock from its home in the sand, while her son-in-law held a baby. How could I know it was her son-in-law and not her son? From time to time he pointed to a spot and she would dig. Meanwhile, west of us, over the city, I saw low layers of leaden clouds, the aftermath of Hurricane Hugo. I looked at the cloud tiers, the clam diggers facing the sea, the surfboarders twisting aimlessly, and the Sandpipers shyly huddled together. This is how it will be on the last day, I thought. After the blast has happened in some place far away, but not far enough, we will all know it's only a matter of time, so we'll dig clams and look out toward the sea, and some of us will flop aimlessly into the water. Meanwhile, the Sandpipers will practice their dance on the sand. They'll fly away at the last moment to some distant island, returning later to a quiet, pristine beach. What's called explosion. My mother was creative in her friendships. She'd talk, laugh, tell stories over Irish bread and tea, reading her visitors' tea leaves before Pop came home, tying everything into a neat afternoon's package. She always sent her friends away with an optimistic forecast. But one day, the afternoon did not end up in the usual way. A woman, Sue Peterson, was having her tea leaves read, and they were talking, when Ma started shouting at her, and she at Ma. They were both enraged. I never could recall the cause, and though my sister told me recently, I forgot it again. It must have been inconsequential on the surface, or I'd have remembered. But beneath everything that day, there was something that has forever refused to be buried. My mother had had a baby, a magnificent child, the doctor said, but it had Rh negative blood, which was a sentence to death in those days. Her blood and Pop's somehow did not match up right. We needed no doctor to tell us that. The baby died in hospital. Ma came home empty-handed. We were so poor then that they didn't have the money to buy a grave. So Sue Peterson gave Ma a piece of her plot for the baby. I think he was named Jeremiah, after her favorite grandfather. It was not the gift of the ground, but something spiteful in the way it was given that simmered long between Ma and Sue. I, a child then, only remember the explosion and her sobbing later, not the details. The meaning of it has stayed with me all these years, reminding me of man's total helplessness before certain events. I have a few translations that I made from Bulgarian folklore. Do you have any time?
Not really.
Do I have a minute? Or do I use it all up?
Okay, okay. Some people are,
Just one then, okay? I'll just do one. Just a little one. This is called Sladuna. Sladuna, last, Sladuna. Sladuna, sweet apple. I never saw enough of your beauty. I never tasted enough of your sweetness. Cursed be your mother for separating the two of us, for selling you to the Turks, for a handful of gold coins, for a string of pearls. Thank
you.
Not to sell you.